Oi, oi, you filthy swines! Welcome to what the bloody oink is going on. And let's read some stuff. About a year or so ago, there was some experiments creating an interactive AI-generated environment using Doom, I think it was, that kind of worked a bit. And the whole idea of creating virtual worlds out of the imagination of an AI is, to me, that's mind-blowing. It's crazy. Well, this article on TechCrunch, written by Rebecca Bellon. I built marshmallow castles in Google's new AI world generator. There you go. That's the gist of it. Google DeepMind is opening up access to Project Genie, its AI tool for creating interactive game worlds from text, prompts, or images. Starting Thursday, Google AI Ultra subscribers in the US can play around with the experimental research prototype, which is powered by a combination of Google's latest world model Genie 3, its image generation model Nano Banana Pro, and Gemini. Coming 5 months after Genie 3's research preview, the move is part of a broader push to gather user feedback and training data as DeepMind races to develop more capable world models. World models are AI systems that generate an internal representation of an environment and can be used to predict future outcomes and plan actions. Many AI leaders, including those at DeepMind, believe world models are a crucial step to achieving artificial general intelligence, sometimes called AGI, you may have heard that. But in the nearer term, labs like DeepMind envision a go-to market plan that starts with video games and other forms of entertainment and branches out into training embodied agents, aka robots in simulation. Lots of talk about this being relevant for games, and one of the problems I have with the whole idea of this being used for games is latency. For some games, it would be really interesting and as an oddity to explore environments created on the fly. It sounds amazing, but I can't imagine plugging this into VR and not noticing a whole load of latency, or into a game that required any twitch precision, which most of the most popular games do. DeepMind's release of Project Genie comes as the world model race is beginning to heat up. Fi-Fi Lee's World Labs late last year released its first commercial product called Marble. Runway, the AI video generation startup, has also launched a world model recently, and former Meta chief scientist Yan Li Kun's startup AMI Labs will also focus on developing world models. I think it's exciting to be in a place where we can have more people access it and give us feedback. Shlomi Frachta, a research director at DeepMind, told TechCrunch via video interview, smiling ear to ear and clear excitement over Project Genie's release. DeepMind's researchers that TechCrunch spoke to were upfront about the tool's experimental nature. It can be inconsistent, sometimes impressively generating playable worlds, other times producing baffling results that miss the mark. Here's how it works. You start with a world sketch by providing text prompts for both the environment and a main character, whom you will later be able to maneuver through a world in either first or third person view. Nano Banana Pro creates an image based on the prompts that you can, in theory, modify before Genie uses the image as a jumping off point for an interactive world. The modifications mostly worked, but the model occasionally stumbled and would give you purple hair when you asked for green. Yeah, that's a sticking point for you, I suppose. But I really like what I've seen so far. I mean, just that simple demo up there is pretty mind-blowing if you can control it. But even still, that would not be acceptable for most gamers. It's not to say that you couldn't use AI to generate a world with the meshes and materials and stuff and stream that to a client that could then render that on the fly. If that's possible, that would be awesome. I don't know exactly how it's handling the rendering, whether it's actually building a world in the background or if it's building an interactive movie. I would hope that it would build an environment that could be run and rendered locally and not just streamed, because if it's primarily streamed, then it's hard for me to get super excited about it, because I'd want to be able to play super fast twitchy games and it just wouldn't be able to handle that, in my opinion. You can also use real life photos as a baseline for a model to build a world on, which again was hit or miss. More on that later. Once you're satisfied with the image, it takes a few seconds for Project Genie to create an explorable world. You can also remix existing worlds into new interpretations by building on top of their prompts, or explore curated worlds in the gallery or via the randomizer tool for inspiration. You can then download videos of the world you've just explored. DeepMind is only granting 60 seconds of world generation and navigation at the moment, in part due to the budget and compute constraints. Because Genie 3 is an auto-regressive model, it takes a lot of dedicated compute, which puts a tight ceiling on how much DeepMind is able to provide to users. The reason we limit to 60 seconds is because we wanted to bring it to more users, Rutcher said. Basically, when you're using it, there's a chip somewhere that's only yours and it's being dedicated to your session. He added that extending it beyond 60 seconds would diminish the incremental value of the testing. The environments are interesting, but at some point, because of their level of interaction, the dynamism of the environment is somewhat limited. Still, we see that as a limitation we hope to improve on. When I used the model, the safety guardrails were already up and running. I couldn't generate anything resembling nudity, nor could I generate worlds that even remotely sniffed of Disney or any other copyrighted material. In December, Disney hit Google with a cease and desist, accusing the firm's AI model of copyright infringement by training on Disney's characters and IP and generating unauthorized content, among other things. I couldn't even get Genie to generate worlds of mermaids exploring underwater fantasy lands or ice queens in their wintry castles. That's a bit broad there, though, isn't it? I mean, Disney doesn't own the idea of mermaids or ice queens. That's interesting. I guess because it's still very much in development, their filters perhaps need expanding or fine-tuning. Still, the demo was deeply impressive. The first world I built was an attempt to live out a small childhood fantasy, in which I could explore a castle in the clouds made up of marshmallows with a chocolate sauce river and trees made of candy. Yes, I was a chubby kid. I asked the model to do it in claymation style, and it delivered a whimsical world that childhood me would have eaten up. The castle's pastel and white-coloured spires and turrets looking puffy and tasty enough to rip off a chunk and dunk into the chocolate moat. It looks pretty good. It's very good. Very impressive. That said, Project Genie still has some kinks to work out. The models excelled at creating worlds based on artistic prompts like using watercolors, anime style, or classic cartoon aesthetics. But it tended to fail when it came to photorealistic or cinematic worlds, often coming out looking like a video game rather than real people in a real setting. Well, that's interesting. Does that mean it's actually running a world in the background and it's not effectively a video? I really don't know how it's working in the background. I imagine it's actually running a world, and the AI's input is in the generation of that world, but again, I don't know. Perhaps I should learn. It also didn't always respond well when given real photos to work with. When I gave it a photo of my office and asked it to create a world based on the photo exactly as it was, it gave me a world that had some of the furnishings of my office, a wooden desk, plants, a grey couch laid out differently, and it looked sterile, digital, not lifelike. When I fed a photo of my desk with a stuffed toy, Project Genie animated the toy navigating the space and even had other objects occasionally react as it moved past them. It's pretty cute. That interactivity is something DeepMind is working on improving. There were several occasions when my characters walked right through walls or other solid objects. When DeepMind released Genie 3 initially, researchers highlighted how the model's auto-regressive architecture meant that it could remember what it had generated. So I wanted to test that by returning to parts of the environment it generated already to see if it would be the same. For the most part, the model succeeded. In one case, I generated a cat exploring yet another desk, and only once when I turned back to the right side of the desk did the model generate a second mug. The part I found most frustrating was the way you navigated the space using arrows to look around, the spacebar to jump or ascend, and the WASD keys to move. I'm not a gamer, so this didn't come naturally to me, but the keys were often not responsive or they sent you in the wrong direction. Trying to walk from one side of the room to a doorway on the other side often became a chaotic zigzagging exercise, like trying to steer a shopping cart with a broken wheel. That's interesting. Like the very first 3D interactive experiences in the early to mid 90s were very much on the rails. They weren't very fluid in the way that you could turn. If you turned at like 90 degrees and you could move in that new 90-degree angle. And it was good for like dungeon crawlers, but it wasn't a very immersive 3D experience. So it sounds similar. It sounds like it's a very relatively constrictive experience to navigate these environments, but it still seems pretty amazing. So I'm not dissing it too much. Still very exciting. Frutcher assured me that his team was aware of these shortcomings, reminding me again that Project Genie is an experimental prototype. In the future, he said, the team hopes to enhance the realism and improve interactive capabilities, including giving users more control over actions and environments. We don't think about Project Genie as an end-to-end product that people can go back to every day, but we think there is already a glimpse of something that is interesting and unique and can't be done in another way, he said. I think it's very exciting. Obviously, it's a bit limited in the way you can move around. And I've seen other examples, other video examples of people navigating these environments, and they are a bit clunky. But for the fact that you can explore a world generated on the fly by AI, this is most definitely the future. And just imagine if you could get rid of all the latency, if you could actually create an environment that you could enter and explore in VR, and you could talk with avatars or whatever in there, agents. I think a lot of people would get lost in this because it would just be so immersive and so infinitely creative. Imagine a kind of version of Roblox or Minecraft or something in the future that is just infinitely unfolding. I can imagine a game like that. I think there's some games that will just suck people in forever. You could have missions in the next Elder Scrolls game that are generated on the fly. You could have characters that are created as and when are needed. It's a very exciting future. And also potentially a little bit dystopian. If people are interested in getting involved in this stuff and not actually interacting with people, then that could be, I'd say, maybe a bit worrying. But I think I'm pretty positive that this could be a good thing. Definitely something to keep our eyes on. But that is it for now. Make sure you hit the like button if you like me. Subscribe if you like me long time. But for now, the only thing I have left to say is Pigwig out.
Oink, oinkity, snort, snuffle, snuffle, squee, oink, oink, wee, squeal, snort, snort, oinkity, squee. Oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinkity, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Snort, snuffle, oink, squee, squeal, wee, snort, oinkity. Oinkity, oink, oink, snuffle, wee, squee, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinkity, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Oink, oinkity, snort, snuffle, snuffle, squee, oinkity, oink, oink, snuffle, wee, squee, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinkity, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Squeal, squeal. Snort, snuffle, oink, re, squeal, re, snort, oinky. Oinkity, oink, 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 snuffle, re, squee, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, re, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 re, 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 oh. Squeal, squeal, snort, snuffle, oink.